What's up, y'all? It's the Monday version of the crossover Casual Monday, but a loaded Monday. I'm Ryan in Sacktown. Connor is going to be joining me. We're friends, but we are foes tonight. We're going to talk about the national championship game, San Diego State in the Natty game playing Connor's Yukon Huskies, who seem to be absolutely unstoppable. So we'll break that down. How about the Kings losing to the Spurs at home? What we can't. Grant and I we talked about this on the post game show last night. We can't really explain why the hell the Kings are struggling so bad at home. It doesn't make sense. Like I've even done a dive into the numbers, and I'm looking, and I just can't. I can't figure out what it is. I mean, there are some shooting issues, but nothing significant. I mean, 24-17 on your home court when you're a team that could be winning 50 games this season, which you could probably kiss that one goodbye with the loss yesterday. But it's really weird, and quite frankly, and here we are, we're getting picky. It's what we do as fans, but we should just be happy to be in the playoffs, but we're nitpicking. We want more, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But them headed into the playoffs with home court advantage, is there even advantage for them to be at home? So who knows? Very bizarre, especially to a team that's only won 19 games this season. So, and bigger problem, Connor and I will do some Kings briefly, but the bigger problem is the Kings in zone defense. The Kings cannot or are not figuring this thing out. I mean, they have spurts of figuring it out, but it's causing problems. Like yesterday, Sabonis and Fox in the first half, they combined for 11 points. 11 points. Sabonis only had 4 boards in the first half. Not like him. So it tells me that when teams play zone against the Kings, there are benefits to slowing down the guys that they need to slow down, specifically Sabonis and Fox. I mean, you're basically you're hanging a candy apple in front of the Kings when you go into a zone defense, because what do the Kings live and die by? The 3 ball. And you're saying, go ahead, shoot it. You're going to beat us with the 3. Shoot it. And what did the Kings do last night? 11 of 44 from the 3-point line. So anyways, we can talk about that, but there's so much more important things to talk about, like the national championship and my man, our Woj, our Adam Schefter, our Brian Windhorse, all into one. Connor Danzy. Catch him on Twitter at Connor Danzy. What's up, buddy? How you doing this afternoon?
Doing great, Ryno. How's it going?
I'm doing well. I'm pretty excited. I would imagine you are as well.
Yeah, very excited. It's kind of like Twilight Zone. The start with 68 teams, and we're left with Yukon and San Diego State.
Connor, you guys are 4 seed, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you see this team did you feel they were underseeded? Did you think they could make a run like this?
I'm not sure anyone could have expected a run like this, but I definitely think they were underseeded in the Big East. Obviously, it's tough, but they gave other Big East teams like Xavier a 3 seed and Marquette a 2 seed. Meanwhile, we got stuck with a 4 in the hardest region that had Kansas, UCLA, and Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and we somehow managed to get out of it.
Yeah, and got out of it playing dominant. I mean, you guys have handled business. I mean, I came on, I forget which show it was. I think it was the pregame show for the Kings, and I did like a 30-second layout of what this weekend would be. I didn't say anything about winning or who would win the national championship, but exactly what I said happened. And it would be UConn would roll. And the best game of the week going to be SDSU FAU. I said SDSU would ultimately win, but coming into this game tonight, it's two drastically different styles. How does UConn like to play, Connor?
Well, UConn likes to push and transition with athletic guys and handlers like Andre Jackson and Tristan Newton.
Oops, sorry, lost you there. Go ahead.
Yeah, they like to play in transition with their athletic guys, but they also have a lot of 3-point shooting. They got a rookie, Alex Caravan, who's got a lot of size, but he's pretty lethal. And then Jordan Hawkins is their volume shooter. He's their big X factor, I would say, in this game. And he's been struggling with an illness throughout the Final Four, but it didn't seem to phase him in the game against Miami. So, I mean, it's going to come down to shooting. They like to play fast, but they're also a pretty daunting team on defense. I know SDSU, that's their thing, but it's not like UConn's chopped liver on defense either.
So talk to me about their defense, because that has been solid all tournament. What specifically is it on defense that they do?
Well, I mean, they pay attention to detail. Like I said, I think Andre Jackson is the X factor overall for this team on defense because he's going to guard your best player. I'm assuming he's going to be on Bradley. Maybe he'll be on Butler, but he's so athletic and he can make any play. He can block you anything with anything. And then you have a guy coming off the bench if Sanogo's in foul trouble. You got Donovan Clingan, who's a 7'2" freshman that doesn't seem like anybody can get a shot to go in the paint over him. So, and that's a pretty good thing to have. I mean, he's a raw talent. He's a work in progress, but he's had a really good tournament so far.
So you guys are so when I look at SDSU's roster, we have 8 seniors and a bunch of upperclassmen. You guys only have 2 seniors. You guys are a relatively young team. Do you think that helps or hurts UConn?
Well, I mean, they only have a couple seniors, but they only have probably 2 returning players next year, which are Caravan and Klingon, the freshman, because you got a lot of grad transfers, and then the 3, Hawkins, Sanogo, and Jackson, are all probably going to get drafted. So, I mean, I think it helps when you have a lot of NBA like talent like that in a team like this, but I wouldn't say they're extremely young because they definitely have their best players are 2 juniors and a sophomore, which I mean, they have some experience in the tournament, but this is going to be the biggest game they've ever played.
Yes, it will, and that would hold true for San Diego State as well. I know everybody in Montezuma Mesa, and just in that general region is hanging by a thread right now and counting the seconds until that ball goes in the air. Um, for San Diego State, like you said, defense is their calling card. But they like a slow grind you out, use 30 seconds on each end of the court type of game. If UConn gets caught in that type of game, do you see any weak spots with that type of style that San Diego State could capitalize on?
Yeah, the biggest weak spot for UConn on against defenses that are really strong. I saw in the Arkansas game in a little 2 to 3 minute run when Arkansas went on a 10-0 run without UConn crossing midcourt. And it comes down to the press. If they can't break the press, and if San Diego State comes in with a really hard press and they're committed to it, I think that could cause a lot of problems and be the downfall to UConn because, yeah, they've shown signs in the last couple games to be able to combat it and stuff. It's when you see 10-point runs and you don't cross midcourt, I mean, that's pretty much unheard of. They had a couple
Yeah.
inbounds violations, they had an out of play technical. I mean, I don't know if San Diego State's known for pressing and stuff. I know they have a daunting defense, but maybe you can tell me a bit about their press and if they utilize it a lot.
So State, they'll pick up ball full court, but it's kind of like a pick up ball. It's not really like a pressure. It's more of just, hey, we're here. They can press. They will mix that in. I mean, that's really how their runs get started. Is just what you said about UConn struggling if there is a press offense or press defense, because San Diego State offensively is very limited. They're very slow. They're very methodical. Really, we have two guys on the court sometimes that aren't even threats to shoot the ball or score the ball. They're there setting screens and just passing it. So, yeah, the press would be something that I would look to see a little bit more of. But the problem is, you beat that press, then they're going to be limited on the backside, and UConn can get out running. And that's the thing that San Diego State can't happen. In fact, San Diego State in the last game against FAU, I said if they got down by 15, it would be big trouble, because they're not like the Sacramento Kings that can fill it up really quick. San Diego State hitting 9 threes in the game against FAU is a lot of threes for them. So they cannot get out or they cannot be blown out or have a big deficit to start the game, or really at any point in the game. If UConn's up 20 with like 12 minutes to go, San Diego State's going to need all of those 12 minutes to try to mount some type of comeback. But I think the bright spot for us with State is we've had some guys, our scorers, that have not really been scoring too much. And it's time for them to kind of break out at this point. I know Butler, I mean, he had only hit one jumper or one mid range shot in the previous season. And I don't know about you, when he hit that game winner, it felt like the Mike Bibby game 5 shot for whatever reason to me. It just looked that way. But Matt Bradley has to have a big game. And he can't be dribble heavy, but that is one key that I am seeing for San Diego State is Bradley has to break out and have that big game.
Yeah, I saw in the FAU game he came out and had a really good start with about 9 or 11 points in the first couple of minutes. He hit some jumpers, and I'm looking at what UConn's been able to do against the opposition stars. We saw in the last game, guys like Nigel Pack, their 3-point specialist, he barely did anything. So, I mean, that's the power of Andre Jackson and just picking out one guy, zoning in on him. And the thing with UConn, they're going to try to have some of the other guys beat you, but I think that does help SDSU because they do have so many guys on their roster that can beat you on any given night.
Yeah, and they like to take it to the hole too. That's a calling card for SDSU. Free throws, they could do a little bit better. Does UConn, would you say they prefer more of a physical game or not so physical?
I'd say that they like a physical game as long as it keeps them out of foul trouble. We saw in the Miami game, Andre Jackson got 2 fouls in the first couple minutes, and he ended up sitting like the entire rest of the first half, which was like 16 minutes. He came out and started the second half, and I don't think he picked up another foul. So obviously, you don't want a guy like that on the bench, and that's when SDSU is going to have to capitalize, and that'd be their chance to go on a little bit of a run. But it's definitely going to be tough with UConn's defense and their offense because we know SDSU, they're an incredible defensive team. The offense, we're not so sure if it's really going to be there at all times, but with UConn, they have a respectable defense and they have an elite offense. So I think that might be the edge, playing well on both sides of the ball.
So, do you think, for me, outside looking in, I have not watched UConn play a single game this season. But from everything you've told me, from everything that I've read, the key for UConn tonight, as funny as this sounds, is going to be their defense, because San Diego State is, not very good on the offensive end. And I think that's the wild card. If they bring the defense like you've talked about, people are talking about, it could be a blowout.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Miami game was their smallest margin of victory, and I think that was around 12 points. So it's shown you really how historic this run has been in terms of dominance. they beat Gonzaga by 30 points, which had the best offense in the country and a college superstar in Drew Timmy. I mean, that goes a long way.
Yep.
I've just been watching these games, and I try not to get superstitious and stuff, but when they go up by 20 points with 10 minutes to go in the first half, it's pretty crazy. And then the time just keeps ticking until the clock hits zero, and they're still able to maintain those leads.
So Connor, when they go on those runs, how do they typically are they quick spurts, or is it just, a 4-minute run where the other team's not making shots?
Well, I've remembered a few times where they show on the screen that the other team, it'll say like they have like a 3 to 4 minute drought without making any field goals or having
Got
zero
it.
points. And then really their big runs, especially in the start of the second half, comes down to Jordan Hawkins. He's more of a second half player. That's when he looks for a shot, and if he hits 1 3 pointer, that's what I've been saying the entire tournament. If he can get 1 3, that's basically game over because all he needs to see is the ball go in one time, kind of like Buddy Hield, and then he can just catch fire. He'll make any kind of shot, whether it's difficult contested or wide open. He's pretty much unstoppable if he can just hit one.
That's scary indeed. We know those types of shooters, when they get going, it's hard to stop. So I guess the question that I have, because you said, Gonzaga, best offense in the tournament, they beat them by 30. Um, what's the best defense to this point in the tournament that UConn has seen?
Are you talking about another team's defense?
Correct. Yeah.
I would probably say St. Mary's because they're a team that likes to stay in games. They're a mid-major team that is not going to score loads of points on you, but they made it close for a while there. And like every other game, UConn was just able to go on that little run and pull away at some point. But also, I want to go back to that Arkansas, that little spurt of the press break and stuff, because that's the biggest thing that concerns me. And I know it was just a couple minute situation, but if SDSU can replicate that, especially when they're down by, let's say, 10 points, they can get that back and make the game manageable, and they can start hitting a couple shots. That's when SDSU can become very scary.
Yeah, the SDSU, they've shown that they do not back down in big moments, and it's not just one guy. It's a lot of the guys. It's whoever has the ball at that time, and it could be somebody that's only taken 2 shots in the game. So it could be scary for him, but I think there's a lot more to be scared of on the SDSU side. And each team is riding a completely different type of momentum right now. You guys are on a dominant momentum, and SDSU, they're just on a run, right? And it's like I'm so excited to see how 2 teams on 2 different types of momentum end up clashing, because both teams are coming in hot, but they're doing it different ways.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. That's what scares me about UConn is how dominant they've been. I think to myself, is it really sustainable over a 6 game stretch where they just can't be defeated? Are they really that good of a team? I mean, obviously, I compare this to the 2014 UConn team that went all the way with Shabazz Napier, and obviously, that was more of a Cinderella being a 7 seed and winning it all. But in this team, they have the guys, they have your big man, they have your shooting, they have the defense. And one thing that we barely touched on is Adama Sanogo, which you could argue with Jordan Hawkins is their best player. And he's just been absolutely dominant in the paint. He went against Norchad Omier of Miami, who was supposed to be a rebounding machine. He basically just took him out of the game. And the biggest key with Sanogo is he just seems to perfect the seal off, where he seals off his defender, and then it's just easy layups. Because when you have guys like Andre Jackson and Tristan Newton that can put the ball exactly where you want it, he has the power to just seal the defender off and then lay it up and in. And then he even showed in the Miami game, he had 2 threes in the first couple minutes. And if he does that, I don't see how anyone can stop him.
Yeah, that's a good point. So Steve Fisher is or was notorious for always doubling the post. It didn't matter who was in the post. It could have been the smallest player on the court. He still would send a double at that guy. And Dutch will still do it from time to time, but I'm interested to see if they mix that into the game plan tonight because of the way you guys shoot the ball from the outside. So you have to be able to have somebody that can make a quick decision. You got to have bigs that have good sight. I mean, can your guys do that? I mean, do you think that a double would kind of shake them a little bit?
I think a few games ago I would have said yes, but a couple games ago, Dama Sanogo had his career high in assists, and he got the ball down low, and when they would show two or put pressure on him, he would just make some great passes and find the shooters. I mean, this is a team that has spot up shooters like the Sacramento Kings with Hawkins and Caravan, and then Joey California from the University of San Diego off the bench, which he can get it flame thrown too. So, I mean, it could work if they can try to get the ball out of his hands quickly in the post, but if you show two, that means that there's somebody open somewhere else. And
Right.
if they can knock down their shots, they might have to switch up the strategy pretty fast.
Right. So, okay, let's just get to it. How do you see the game playing out?
Well, I see this being the closest of games that UConn's had so far in this tournament, which I don't think is saying much. I see it as a single digit game. But ultimately, I think it's back and forth, which does play in the SDSU's style of play when they just won at the buzzer. But I see UConn probably taking this game, pulling away a little bit, and I'll say they'll win it by 8. Let's say, since they're both good defensive teams, 72-64 Huskies.
Okay, so you're going right over the spread. The spread's 7.5 right now for UConn. I'm going to be a homer. UConn is a better basketball team than San Diego State. The question to me is, are they going to be the better basketball team tonight? Because it's 40 minutes. It's not who's the better team for the entire season. I see San Diego State coming out and utilizing pressure as much as they can, probably more so than they have in any game in the tournament and up to this point in the season. And one thing about them is they do not get tired. And they can bring guys off the bench that are the same body size, same style, same quickness, and do the exact same as the starters. So if that pressure holds up and they can get UConn frustrated a little bit or just get them a little bit rattled, that would be the first thing that they have to do. Second thing is shooting. If they can just contest shots, if they can push UConn off the 3-point line, if they can defend the post a little bit, obviously somebody's going to get theirs, but you can't let all three of UConn's big three get theirs. So I think this is the night. I feel it in my guts that San Diego State is going to win the national championship. I don't think it will be a big margin. I don't think San Diego State will lead very many times in this game. I think it will be similar to the FAU game where UConn gets up probably, I'm not going to say 20, but UConn will maybe be up 15 at some point, possibly towards the end of the first half. But then in the second half, I think San Diego State chips away, controls the pace, and it ultimately comes down to probably free throws. And on this night, the Aztecs hit them, and they become national champions.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fairy tale story, be a fairy tale ending to their. I don't think you can call it a Cinderella story as a 5 seed, but I mean, it's pretty darn close because if they can make their free throws, which they've really struggled with in their Final Four game and still
Yep.
won, so that's what concerns me even more. I don't know. I'll ask you, do they get to the line at a high frequency or is it just a couple trips a game?
No, they get to the line at a decent clip. It depends on how the game's being called. San Diego State. The reason I asked about if UConn likes physical game, and this is going to be the other factor. San Diego State is incredibly physical, and if the refs have a loose whistle tonight, that's going to benefit SDSU because they like to take it to the hole. They like to tip balls out on offensive rebounds. They like to bang around down there. And they're not afraid of taking a hit or creating contact. So, yeah, they get to the line a decent amount, but they are not good with their 1-and-1s. What do you think about 1-and-1s? I think they should get rid of those.
I don't know. I kind of like it. I think it's obviously unique to college basketball, and it puts a lot of pressure on someone. And especially with it takes 10 fouls, I think, now to get to the double bonus and
Right.
to shoot two for sure. So I kind of like it, but it makes that first free throw so much more important. And especially if this is a close game, you have your bigs going to the line. If they're attacking the rim, it's going to be interesting to see if they can hit them, because obviously these players have been through a lot of high pressure situations, but what they're going to experience tonight is nothing close to what they've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, UConn's played in this season. They've played in bigger games, being in the Big East, and played in bigger arenas. Obviously, they not played someplace as big as Reliant either at SDSU until Saturday. But I think both teams will probably be settled into that environment. I mean, nothing theoretically changes between a Final Four game and a national championship game except what you're playing for. So, everything else, all the glitz, glamour, that's all going to be the same as it was.
Yeah, and then another thing I had for you was we talked about Adama Sanogo and how SDSU is such a great defensive team. Do you know who the guy that's going to be on Sanogo is? Is that going to be Nathan Mensah, who I think is a great shot blocker and good defender and kind of their utility guy? Or you see somebody else taking on the role?
Hold that question really quick, Con Man. We're going to take a quick break, and I will answer that. All right, welcome back to the crossover. Okay, Connor, you were asking about who was going to be guarding somebody. Go ahead again.
Yeah, who's going to be guarding UConn's big man, Adama Sanogo? I mentioned Nathan Mensah. He's their shot blocker and their utility guy, but do you see it as him or somebody else or a mixture of guys until they can get it right?
I think they'll start with him, but I think it's going to be a mixture of guys. I think that they're going to throw a lot of different looks at him. That's kind of the bread and butter of SDSU. And foul trouble could affect things too, depending again on how the refs call the game. But that's probably the matchup that it will be starting off for sure. And I do got to ask you this: we want to put a little friendly wager on this one.
What do you have in mind?
I don't know. Let's see. It's straight up, no points. We don't have to go spreads. Let's say the next time that you are on King's pregame show, which will probably be fairly soon, you have to wear SDSU gear if if SDSU wins, and vice versa. I have to wear UConn gear if UConn wins.
All right, sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So that's the bet. That's the bet. All right. Well, we got a couple minutes before we start getting ready for Grant's 3 p.m. with Sean. Kings, what'd you make of last night?
Just another embarrassing showing at home. They can't give the fans the celebration of their team in the big game. They had a chance against the Timberwolves to clinch. They couldn't. They had a chance last night against a terrible Spurs team to clinch the division. They failed again. In your last home game of the season against Golden State, which is probably going to be them playing for their playoff lives to avoid the play-in. So that's going to be a very difficult game. And like Grant said, 3 out of the last 4 on the road. I think that suits a lot better for this team, especially when one of those games against the Mavericks, who have just seemed to plummeted off the face of the earth the last couple weeks.
Yeah, they have. So if Grant and I could not put our finger on what the issue is at home. When you look at the squad and you look at the struggles they've had at home, 24-17, what is there anything that jumps out to you as to why the Kings struggle so much at Golden One Center?
Yeah, I looked into this yesterday, and I actually think I found the answer with somebody on Twitter. It showed that the Kings' defensive efficiency on the road is 9th in the NBA, which is obviously top 10 is great. And then at home, their defensive efficiency is 29th. And that's a
Interesting.
huge difference. I'm not sure it explains the whole thing, obviously, because they have some of the best fans in the entire country, but I think that could have a lot to do with it. But the reason why their defense is so bad between home and the road, I don't understand that at all.
That is incredibly interesting. I wonder if it has to do with margin of victory between road games and home games. I would love to look into that as well, because the Kings may be playing, closer games at home versus, when the Kings have lost at home, they've usually been blown out at home for the most part, and sometimes by really bad teams. But on the road, sometimes they blow teams out, or they'll stretch a lead at the end of the game to double digits with free throws. So that's a really interesting take, a great take, great stat, great poll. Well, that's not really a problem you can fix, or theoretically, I don't think it's a problem you can fix, because the Kings are such a bad defensive team across the board. I mean, so basically what we're saying, Connor, is they have to make their shots at
Yeah,
home
I
to win.
mean,
That's it.
that's basically it. That's been their mojo all year, obviously. And I said on Grant's post game yesterday, a lot of people are overreacting to the loss and everything, and that the Kings are just they only have one good area. But I mentioned that one good area of outscoring your opponents has given them 47 wins this season, which is one of the best records in the NBA. But obviously, I know everyone's talking about the playoffs and how defense intensifies and stuff. I'm really not so sure about that anymore. It's obviously an offensive-oriented league at this point, and obviously players are going to be more tuned in on defense, but is it really going to be that huge of a difference when you just turn the calendar a couple weeks from now?
Yes, it is. And here's why. Uh, every possession in the postseason matters because there's less of them. The game slows down, and 50-50 balls, right? Where a guy could theoretically get to it maybe, or make a run for it. Um, in the regular season, a lot of the guys don't go for them. They just let it go out of bounds, or they don't want to get hurt, right? In the postseason, it's completely different. It's balls to the wall. So to me, it's a completely different game when you're watching it. I mean, watch a game between the Warriors and, I don't know, the Suns mid-season, and then flip to a game with the Warriors in the playoffs. It's two different things. It's just, I don't know how to explain it and why. It's almost like every team, they coast a little bit in the regular season. Then when postseason comes, it's completely different.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You see teams like Golden State with what they've done with load management and stuff this year. It seems like they don't really have any interest in the regular season. They don't seem to care at all. As long as they're playing a 7-game series in April, it seems like that's what they've been planning for all year. And obviously, they have the defensive players with Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Gary Payton, who they got back. So, and they have the pieces. The Kings, they really don't. You have Davion Mitchell and Kessler Edwards are probably your two defensive specialists, but
Yeah.
I mean, the playoffs, no offense to the Spurs, but you're not playing against Doug McDermott and Julian Champagnie anymore, who are like scoring 60 points on you, which is just embarrassing. But
Yeah, and you bring up a great point about, them not just trying to get a ticket to the dance, right? That's all they need. They don't care where they're sitting. It's general admission, right? And I remember just 10, 15, 20 years ago, it mattered where you finished. Like you wanted to get first place to say you were the first place team in the Western Conference and such. Now, and I mean, I don't know if it started with the LeBron teams or what, but it's exactly what you said. It's just making sure they get in. That's all they care about because they know what they can do. And that's the time that they lock down and dial in.
yeah, and I kind of wanted to switch gears a little bit, but it kind of connects what we were talking about with kind of the amount of games players play in the regular season and just kind of preparing for the playoffs. This new collective bargaining agreement,
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of just shocked everybody in the middle of the night. Woj just kept giving out detail after detail, and one of those is the 65 game minimum requirement to win the end of season awards. What do you think about that? And do you think that gives the players more incentives to stay healthy and not skip out on road games?
I don't think it changes anything, to be honest with you. A lot of the guys that are going to be up for those awards, they'll play 65 games and still get their rest. Now, the question for you, because I haven't read a ton into it, how does that work if it's a legitimate injury? It doesn't matter. You have to have 65 games played.
Yeah, as far as I know, I think it's 65 no matter what. And I saw you mention that the guys will get their 65 games and stuff no matter what, but I'm not sure about that because I saw a post that had if this rule was in place and implemented the past 3 or 4 years, there was a lot of players who won the awards that would not have won it and it would have gone to different players. So, I
Hmm.
mean, it's interesting and stuff. Obviously, you can't fault a player for getting a freak injury or being out an extended period of time, but you have guys like Kawhi Leonard and the whole Warriors clan sitting out every back to back and stuff, basically. I think that's what they're trying to solve and stuff. But obviously, you're not having that many back to backs to where you can't play 65 games.
Yeah, I guess what my initial take on that is that tells me the players don't care about the postseason awards. They really don't. I mean, if we're talking about the normal player that would be up for MVP, they already have. And the counter argument is, well, if you're the MVP, you'll probably have some type of contract bonus. Okay, well, the contract bonus isn't going to matter to that type of player because you're already probably a max player. You've got shoe deals, you've got other deals. So I think MVP is the only award that really they care about. But other than that, I don't think they care about the awards. It's not like you're. Here's an example. It's not like Kessler Edwards, right? Getting defensive player of the year. That would be different, right? Because he's not a big pay guy. So that bonus would be important to him, but the money side on the backside doesn't matter much to them. I think it's more about winning the championships. I think if you're going to put anything in place, it's gotta affect the ability to play in the postseason, which obviously has now not happened because of the CBA being done. My take all along on it was if you guys are going to sit players out, you have the schedule well in advance, right? You say we're sitting out these guys on these nights. If you know it's going to be back to backs, and they have to sit out. Everybody has noticed that they're sitting out. They cannot play for any reason on those nights. And so then it's balance for the fans. The fans know those guys aren't going to be playing, and it can't be like a turnaround thing like, oh, we need to win this game tonight and, we're going to actually play them. No, you can't. You already announced they're sitting out.
Yeah, I mean, let's just look at the MVP candidates for this season. You look at Giannis, he's won 2 MVPs back to back. Jokic, he's done the same thing. I think this is most important for Joel Embiid, who seems to just not be able to get over the hump. But like you said, other than Giannis, who has the 1 championship ring, Jokic and Embiid have yet to do anything in the playoffs. They've been super underwhelming in the postseason with barely even being able to get out of the second round. I don't know if either of them have ever done that, but I think obviously their goal is championship. And the same goes for Giannis, because I think you'd agree with me that Giannis is already on pace, if not already there, to be one of the top 25, 30 players in NBA history. And
Yes.
obviously these guys are building their resumes, building their accolades, but I think this means the most to Joel Embiid, who has that big hole and he's looking to fill his trophy case this year.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. 100% about Embiid, but I don't know. I just don't think, I don't think it changes much at all. I think it's just kind of it's a Bush change. I mean, you have a commissioner of the NBA at the All-Star break that said the league does not have a load management issue. Straight out said that. That's not a problem. So who knows? The big thing is, why they got, in my opinion, the CBA done so early was because of the contract negotiations that are going to be coming up for rights, the television deals, and that's where the NBA makes the majority of their money. So, anything else in the CBA pop out to you?
Yeah, the in-season tournament that they're planning on adding, which I know they haven't released all the details and stuff, but it looks like that's going to be in the middle of the year. It's not going to add any more games played other than, I think, one. It'd be 83 games for the 2 teams that advance to the finals, and the winners of the players each get 500 grand each, which is basically like a $5 bill to everyday people. But I mean, a lot of people are against it and saying it's stupid and stuff. I mean, I like it. The regular season could use a little more drama and a little more excitement. So, I mean, I don't see, maybe try it out for a year or two and see how the ratings are, because the NBA is in desperate needs of bumping up their ratings.
So, what happens to the teams that are knocked out of the tournament? They're just at home resting?
I guess I think it might kind of be like the bubble situation, maybe, where it's like that week or two kind of thing. I mean, I know they haven't talked about everything about it yet, but I think the only thing I saw, and I think that's why it's a good thing, is you would think a tournament like this, when teams are getting eliminated and other teams would have to play more games, these games are counting as regular season normal games. So it would just be an extra game for the championship teams. But I mean, it is pretty confusing and stuff, but I think it could be a good change.
Yeah, no, I mean, on the surface, it sounds like a good change. I'm just like wondering because, like the all-star problem, right? A lot of the guys, the guys that are perennial all-stars, that's a hassle for them to go to all-star weekend. They always say, it's great to see everybody and hang out, but they would rather have their week off, right? And many players that are not involved in all-star weekend, they savor that week off. So, if this in-season tournament allows a team to have a week off in the middle of the season, I bet a lot of the players are going to want that time off to gear up for a playoff run, So that's interesting. I'm going to have to look more into that. I don't know. I mean, does that really move the needle though, ratings wise? Because on the whole, it's just the same thing. You're calling it a tournament. Teams are just playing each other, and I guess the travel too, or is it going to be league wide, or is it going to be within the conferences?
Yeah, I have no idea. I think the league is gonna have to do a lot more to revamp their fan base and stuff. Obviously, Grant talked about removing the corner three and just a
Yeah.
3-point shooting contest at this point. I think this tournament may help, but just like you said about the All Star weekend, if these are just regular season games, what's going to stop the coaches from just resting their guys again when in the middle of the season, like the Warriors and Clippers usually do, when these games, they do have the playoff implications, but they're just treated as normal regular season games, which some of the contenders and playoff teams are fine. They'll let a few slide here and there.
Yeah. I yeah, there's a lot to that because I wonder how the seating and all that would work. You know what I mean? Would you go off of no, because you have to do the schedule in advance, so you can't go off of where teams stand in each conference. That seems like well, on the surface, it seems like a hot mess to deal with and get figured out because to me, there's more questions than absolutes about the tournament that they're going to hold. I don't know. I mean, they're trying to take a book or a page out of the World Baseball Classic book, no doubt about that. But interesting, very interesting. Well, shoot, my man. I guess last question: King's going to get 50.
The way they're trending the past couple games, probably not. If they do, it'll be no more than 50. You got to beat the Pelicans, you got to beat the Mavericks, and then that Nuggets game at the end of the year probably is meaningless for them. And the Kings are going for 50. I know it doesn't actually do anything, but like Grant said, it's the magic number, and it would probably mean a lot. And maybe there's some bonuses and stuff involved with that. So could I see it? Yes, but I'm probably leaning towards no at this point.
So to you, I made the point to Grant on the post game show. I'm like, yeah, it's great. It's 50, but at the same time, if you're at 48 or 49, that's still great. Like 50 doesn't get you anything special. It's just saying you won 50 games. Does it change that much? I mean, for you as a first time playoff Kings fan, does it matter that much to you as a fan if the Kings win 50 games or not?
I think it's less about the actual number of 50 and more about having the momentum into the playoffs that they
Okay.
need
Okay.
because, I mean, this week or so has been very bad to say the least with losing to the Timberwolves and the Spurs and stuff. So I think it's about momentum and you have a chance to pick up a few wins on your schedule that you should take care of, which this team has shown that there's no easy win in the NBA for them. There's no guarantees, obviously. So I mean, it would be cool to see the 50 and everything, and that, like Grant said, is the mark of a really solid season. But you get 48, 49. Is it really the end of the world? It's all about momentum to me, and that's the big thing why I care about it.
Gotcha. But are you that much more excited as a fan at 50? Like that, I guess that's what I'm getting at.
No, not
Like,
really.
does it make you look at the season differently if it's 50 over 49? Because I
No.
just don't see the difference there, you know? Um, well, and you bring up this will be the last thing. You bring up momentum. Let's be honest, they didn't play great in Portland. If you graded those two games, the final scores really do not tell the story of how the Kings core and their rotation actually played. They beat those team or they beat Portland with two basically runs, and there was no way Portland could come back. But the other parts of the game, they played really poor, I thought. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they've been playing against basically G League competition for the past like
Yes.
4 games with obviously the trend since the All Star break is teams not being at full strength. Even the Spurs didn't have their two best players with Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell, and they still found a way to lose that game. They gave up 140 to the San Antonio Spurs. I know it's Greg Popovich and stuff, but I mean it's just sad. I mean, the Blazers games, yeah, you won by 40, but I think that game was like a 6 point game at halftime for one of them, and then they were able to turn it on and stuff. But when you're playing a playoff team in the playoffs, on the road and stuff? Are you going to be able to just turn up whenever you want against competition that's much better?
We'll see. That time will be told, or time will tell if that's going to happen. But yeah, that's a big jump when you are playing G League teams and then you play, a legit NBA team that's experienced in the playoffs. So you and I are going to probably have to make this a weekly thing. You got time in your schedule?
Yep, anytime you want.
Cool. All right, man. Well, this is Connor, Conman. Find him on Twitter at Connor Danzy. Also on some of the Kings pregame shows with me, trying to get him more in the mix there. Thanks for joining me, man, and good luck to your Huskies tonight.
Thanks for having me. Tonight should be a dandy, as Grant says. Looking forward to it, and I look forward to see you in some Yukon gear next game.
Ha ha! Trash talking, all right, already. All right, man. Be well. All right. Well, that's all we got for you today. Nice little conversation with Conman. We will be back very soon, actually. Grant is going to have Sean Salisbury on in about 40 minutes. So I will see you on his channel there. Probably talk some Kings and some Aztec basketball as well. But as always, great edition of the crossover, great Monday edition with Connor, all about the national championship tonight and the Kings and their struggles and what's going to happen heading into the playoffs. But we got plenty of time to worry about that tonight. Again, national championship, San Diego State Aztecs versus the Yukon Huskies. We've gone over it a million times. UConn's been there before. San Diego State has not, but I don't think this moment's too big for San Diego. If there's anybody in the world that I would want coaching that team, getting that team ready for a game like this, it's Coach Dutcher. Coach Dutcher is going to have that team so loose and so ready to go. I guarantee right now they're joking around and having a good time because that's what Dutch does. And those guys are going to run through a wall for him. And win or lose tonight, this is still a win for Aztec Nation. This is still something to cherish. And it's not one of those things that enjoy it while we have it. This is something that's going to be continuing far into the future with this program. The Aztecs will be back in the NCAA tournament, back in the Sweet 16, back in the Final Four, and at some point they will get their championship. The question is, will it be tonight? This guy says yes. And if they don't, I'll be fitted for some Yukon gear. So anyways, thanks so much for joining the show. Big thanks to Connor for coming on. We will be back tomorrow, probably Aztec Overload. You're either going to see a happy Ryan or you are going to see a disappointed Ryan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be happy either way. So, all right, y'all. Thanks for being here. Go check out Grant's show, 3 o'clock with Sean Salisbury on the If You Don't Like That network. I will post a link on my Twitter account. For now, Ryno and for Connor, I'm Ryno. Have a great rest of the day. Go Aztecs. See you.